we won fights against the mandate and the vaccine passports, right? So we can win this, but we need a digital bill of rights that's going to ring fence and protect our freedoms. In the same way you have to have a warrant to come into someone's house, you need to be able to say that people have their freedoms and privacy. And they can't just do this big overreach. You know, the idea of everything from a smart city, low traffic neighborhoods, CCTVs, fining people, attack a war on cars, the new emergency, the climate emergency, and imposing all sorts of surveillance and limits on us rather than a flourishing dynamic economy. That's the outlook of technocrats. And there's, you know, the question about smart cities, 15 and 20 minute cities or neighborhoods. All of that's part of an outlook. Not that you have GPs everywhere, not that you have all these great services and provision. Oh, that will come later at some point, but you have bollards and checkpoint Charlies. And many people around Britain have fought against that. But now we see a situation where what they really want to be able to do is to have control, to look at what everyone's doing. And we've seen all these measures, right? The council saying, well, if you don't recycle your garbage this way, then it's fines, and who's eating what kind of carbon footprint have you got, where are you going on holiday, how much petrol are you using. All of a sudden you think, gosh, if you're not the ideal type of their consumer, like in a social credit way, you don't get enough points and boom, you're logged out of this thing or that thing. Now, that sounds a bit Black Mirror, it sounds a bit far-fetched, but we were locked down. It was unprecedented. It's never been seen before, and that's just been recently.
Is it Tony Blair who's behind it, or is it Palantir? Is it World Economic Forum? Who's behind all of this?
Well, Tony Blair's been trying to push national ID cards for a long, long time. He was talking about it in the 90s, then in the noughties, and then with the end of the world, the so-called war on terror and the response to 9/11, that then got put on steroids. And in the early noughties, it was being pushed, but it was kicked out in 2010 and 2011. It was dispensed with. But Tony Blair's answer seems to be to every problem, let's get digital ID. He was pushing massively the idea of vaccine passports.
Hello and welcome to the MoneyMagpie Invest podcast. I'm Jasmine Birtles, founder of MoneyMagpie.com. And before we start, do remember to subscribe to us, like, comment, always comment, because I always look at the comments, very interested to see what you have to say, and tell all your friends, of course. Now, today I'm very grateful to say that I am joined by Alan Miller, the founder of the Together Declaration, among other organisations, because Alan is currently helping company directors to fight against what seems to be a demand from the government to set up digital ID. That's the best I can say of it. Alan, hello there.
Hello, Jasmine. Thanks for having me today.
Well, I'm very grateful you're here, as I say, because I am very against the whole concept of digital ID. And when I heard that company directors were effectively by the back door being told to sign up to digital ID, that really bothered me, because I'm a company director, and I thought, right, I need to speak to Alan. So Alan, could you explain firstly, what is the situation? What is the government demanding, and why is it a problem?
Yes, so they're saying from the 18th of November, any director and all directors will have to register. Now, we should be clear what that means. There's something called the One Login System. And the One Login System is the infrastructure that's built where, when they're saying there's going to be mandatory for people to work or voluntary if you want to use other services, they're saying it's voluntary at the moment. The One Login System is a way you can do it. Slightly separate to the NHS system, underwritten by Palantir, but the One Login System. So you get a digital ID code, and then if you register, that's effectively your verification digitally, and that will be utilised across the board then for all areas, and it raises lots of concerns. On top of that sits a Gov UK digital app, the thing they want to call the Brick Card, or they're saying they want to call the Brick Card. You imagine it like an Apple wallet, but it's a government wallet. So it's a state wallet with all your information and data in there. Now, what they've said, because obviously if they go after the directors this way, then getting all the workers is the next step. But it's got to go through Parliament to do that. And that's got to have it's got to go through ping pong and the Lords, and we'll all challenge it, and it won't be for a while. But this measure is for any new directors and any existing directors. Now, the first thing to know is that, and we've got a toolkit on this on our website, togetherdeclaration.org, and we're messaging about this, is that if you've got an accountant that's an ACSP, right, and that's just an acronym for Authorized Corporate Service Provider, which many accountants are registered as, then what that enables any director that's got that to do is for the accountant to submit your filing. This is about filing and returns and everything. What it still does, you can't get around at the moment the legal thing of getting some kind of registration, but that's only with Companies House. Now, when I say only with Companies House, that means it's not through the one login system.
Okay.
So you get it and it goes through Companies House, which still begs some questions. We've already got a national social security number, national insurance number rather. We've already got passports, which we show. We've already got our proof of address. So they've got all that for the money laundering concerns and the trusted person, all of that stuff that came out. But now they're saying they want this. Now, obviously, there's a discussion about technology and utilizing it, but this is a grave concern. So what we're saying, first of all, is all the directors at the moment, and there's a 12-month window from the 18th, depending on when you file, you should all be very explicit with accountants and say, we don't want to be on one login. We're not going to register on one login. But if you put us through as file our documents, then you do that only through Companies House.
Okay.
Now, then there's the question of all the people who are directors who don't have accountants. And that's a range of people. Now, there are some caveats to this, because at the moment they're saying if you take less than 30,000 or 60,000, or if you're a freelancer, you won't have to do it in some ways. But most companies take much more. Now, we would advise that for the cost of it, it's definitely worth, if you can, in your entity. It's like another tax, but pay for an accountant at the moment to get that done. We are in discussions with people about providing some things with other accountants, but that's all in early stages. And then we've got letters as well going to accountants and to the Institute of Chartered Accountants, as well as to the Department of Business Trade, as well as to all of the cabinets, the Department of Science, Technology, and others, saying we do not believe that directors should be forced onto digital ID of any kind or verification, because where this leads is, as with the other areas of benefits and child support and all the things they've said, well, that could be voluntary, is that it's a one digital identifier and verification that also, when you talk about the Online Safety Act and other things like that, and verifying people and checking them and logging in and biometrics, all of a sudden you've got this infrastructure by the state where people are expected to have this digital ID, and that's used to engage and participate in all parts of life. So it's utterly unacceptable. We have an open letter that we'd invite all of your directors to sign and share the petition. It's an open letter petition. Send it to your MP and to your councillors. Obviously, May elections are coming up, and we're saying that you should vote for anyone who says they're opposing digital ID. There are many out there. Obviously, millions oppose it, a petition for 3 million, but many councillors and MPs and potential councillors are saying they're against it. You've got parties entirely like Reform who are saying they're opposed to it, who are polling very well, but even like Labour backbenchers and Conservatives and Lib Dems and others.
Jeremy Corbyn, he's against it,
across the board. And we're creating more groups around the country that are directors as well as veterans, because they're trying to use veterans as guinea pigs, 1.8 million of them, saying, you could get your veterans card on there. You don't need to do it. There's no reason. It's a nudge and a push, as well as our children, with the children wellbeing school bill. And that will give a digital identifier that will carry on right through life, no ability to opt out. And what we're asking for is directors to submit videos as well, Jasmine. So if you're opposed to it, put a video together saying why. We'll share it. That's a way that we've campaigned before around other issues around digital ID with vaccine passports and frontline staff at the NHS, getting a lot of press, mainstream press, getting it into the attention of the broadcasters and also the broadsheets and tabloids, but also on social media, also up and down the country, people lobbying and campaigning.
Well, this is really marvellous, Alan. And I mean, there's a lot to unpick there. One thing that I'm thinking, of course, there are many issues with digital ID, but one of the ones you mentioned, Palantir. It's who has access to all of this information, and how safe is it? Because I'm assuming, as with anything to do with technology, there's going to be problems with it.
Absolutely. Well, there's 125 million Americans have had data breaches this year, 2025. We've just seen another round of data breaches just covered today in Britain. Obviously, we saw Marks and Spencers. We've seen Heathrow grounded. We've seen the Afghan scandal where service personnel and others have been breached across the world, from Finland to India with Ardar. Millions of people have had data breaches. We've also, so there's data breaches, there's security risks, there's the concerns about if there's shutdown, net zero outages in Spain and Portugal, you can't engage, or you just get logged out, the computer says no, or if you're 3.5 million older people and you can't engage, and other people who don't engage online, or if you just don't want to, which is why we've got a digital bill of rights. And our digital bill of rights is saying, number one, you must have the option to be analog and not participate without, the freedoms and liberty and privacy that our forefathers fought for are fundamental to us, and that's paramount. The other thing is that, of course, it's data breaches and security and concerns around that. I mean, we've seen it from New South Wales, where they've had bogus digital ID driver's licenses. We've seen it even in Estonia, that everyone keeps talking about how great it is. But look at things like Vietnam, where you had 86 million bank accounts shut down because of the mandatory biometric digital ID. Look at our own issues with debanking for people's opinions. Obviously, people know people like Nigel Farage, but all sorts of campaign groups like Us For Them and many others. We did a campaign to challenge that with the Financial Control Authority. We've also been campaigning with the Bank of England and others to say that we need to have banks kept open, that people have to be able to have cash, because the other concern is around central bank digital currency. And the Bank of International Settlement CEO said, we love to have this because you can then track every single transaction. So the idea of a state with central infrastructure that's spying and snooping, we know the Department for Work and Pensions has recently been pushing the idea that you can go in and take people's money out of their bank account, allegedly to stop fraud. Liz Kendall overseeing that now, being brought into this area.
Hi, I'm going to quickly interrupt this amazing podcast to let you know that Money Magpie Invest has a bi-weekly newsletter where we share tips, tricks and insights to help you become a more confident investor. Our newsletter is completely free to sign up to, and it will arrive in your inbox on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. As well as all of the super useful investing information, we also share exclusive deals from our partners. So if you're serious about building long-term wealth for yourself, I really recommend signing up. And you can find the link in the description of this podcast.
So across the board, you don't even have to imagine a dystopian future. What we've seen in the last few years with things like two-tier policing, two-tier judiciary, debanking, so-called non-crime hate incidents, people being put in prison by social media posts, the whole idea that, your personal choices, what those are allowable or not by a state that's snooping, spying, thinks that some ideas are beyond the pale, that you should get a knock at the door because of a social media post you do by 6 policemen, or if you're a comedian coming into the airport met by 5 armed police, and not others who have ideas. All of these things are giving many people pause to recognise that, on the one hand, you start off, Labour says it's not got it in any manifesto, well, it's to stop the boats. Then when that gets ridiculed, because we know that there are digital ID, biometric digital ID in Italy and France and Germany, it's not stopping any illegal migrants there. Then they say, oh, actually, well, it's for the health system, or it's for, making it convenient at work, stop having to get bills out of your drawers. It's preposterous, but we need to make sure we uphold and defend our privacy and our liberty. And let's be honest, right? Directors, the entrepreneurs in Britain are so important for driving our economy. And that's what the government should be thinking about, protecting citizens, the borders and defence, and then making sure we've got a strong economy. And that the first people to be doing that is our entrepreneurial, wonderful entrepreneurs that are innovative and dynamic. Yeah. But we've had sluggish growth. And yet this government, its only antidote to all of that is to say, well, we've got this silver bullet, it's digital ID. It's utterly unacceptable. And we really encourage any of your directors and also the public who watch your things to get involved with us together.
Absolutely. And, as you're talking, I'm thinking, you've mentioned that coming out in this Labour government, and Keir Starmer's, essentially said, isn't it marvellous, isn't it great? Everyone else said no. But it's not this government that's created it. I mean, it's been created for over the few years. I mean, I thought it was over the last 2 years, but it may have started when Blair came, was around, sort of end of the 90s. Is it Tony Blair who's behind it, or is it Palantir? Is it World Economic Forum? Who's behind all of this?
Well, Tony Blair's been trying to push national ID cards for a long, long time. He was talking about it in the 90s, then in the noughties, and then with the end of the world, the so-called war on terror and the response to 9/11, that then got put on steroids. And in the early noughties, it was being pushed and pushed and pushed, but it was kicked out in 2010 and 2011. It was dispensed with. But Tony Blair's answer seems to be to every problem, let's get digital ID. He was pushing massively the idea of vaccine passports and mandatory jabs. And, people can make their own choices about that, but it should be a personal decision. Not, you can't participate in society if you don't do something using digital ID. So Tony Blair and the Tony Blair Institute has been very seminal in this around the world. He has links with people like obviously Larry Ellison from Oracle. There are big companies like Infosys, as you mentioned, Palantir. But, those big companies are always lobbying, looking to do things to make money. But it's the political technocrats that are really problematic. And yes, at places like the World Economic Forum at Davos, Keir Starmer says he prefers Davos to Westminster, the heart of parliament and democracy. But the idea of everything from a smart city, low traffic neighborhoods, CCTVs, fining people, attack a war on cars, the new emergency, the climate emergency, and imposing all sorts of surveillance and limits on us rather than a flourishing dynamic economy. That's the outlook of technocrats. And there's, the question about smart cities, 15 and 20-minute cities or neighborhoods. All of that's part of an outlook. Not that you have GPs everywhere, not that you have all these great services and provision. That will come later at some point, but you have bollards and checkpoint Charlies. And many people around Britain have fought against that. But now we see a situation where what they really want to be able to do is to have control, to look at what everyone's doing. And we've seen all these measures, right? The council saying, well, if you don't recycle your garbage this way, then it's fines. And who's eating what kind of carbon footprint have you got? Where are you going on holiday? How much petrol are you using? All of a sudden you think, gosh, if you're not the ideal type of their consumer, like in a social credit way, you don't get enough points and boom, you're logged out of this thing or that thing. Now, that sounds a bit Black Mirror. It sounds a bit far-fetched, but we were locked down. It was unprecedented. It's never been seen before, and that's just been recently. And we've seen that emergency measures used during lockdown have been used as emergency traffic orders all around the country to shut down streets, to not have consultations or to ignore people when there were consultations, like Sadiq Khan with ULIS saying it's the wrong type of respondents to it. So all of these things demonstrate that even if you had a wonderful, enlightened group of people who are running it, when the state should not have access to be able to do all these things and create a kind of enormous, amorphous biometric surveillance state, right? What the state needs to do is some very particular measures, and they should focus, politicians, on policies that are going to be of benefit to the public, but they hate the public. They hate the public. They call us names. They smear us. And instead, what they want to do is constantly take away power, like our rights. If you can only think about things like around free speech, the questions about protest, banning things across the board, right? What we're eating, where we're going, what we're doing. You can see that's the kind of impetus. And on the one hand, it's the nudge, the behavioural psychological units that they had during, underneath the Conservatives and before that, Cameron and Blair, and now. A bit like with the hammer coming down, we're going to do it anyway. It's going to be mandatory. We don't care. It wasn't in a manifesto. We know best.
It does sound like extremism to me. I mean, I don't know, frankly, if it's fascism or communism. They're both the same. It's sort of basically the central control, do it or else. And this, I think, is what people are beginning to cotton on to, that's what it means in the long term. But do you think there are enough people who are angry and upset about this? Are there enough people to stand up against this?
I think we're in a very different position, Jasmine, to what we were in that. If you say to people it was once in a lifetime virus that's going to kill people, people might do some things. If you say, well, you're not allowed to talk about borders, you're not allowed to talk about crime, you're not allowed to talk about migrant hotels, you're not allowed to talk about free speech issues or who's getting arrested or why, or Southport and the protest. The public has now become wise to being called names. They're being called far right. They're being called neo-Nazis, terrible slurs for a nation that fought actual real Nazis. And I think that we've got the technocrats, the managerial technocrats that are so estranged from the public. They hate the public. They hate us. They fear the public. They think that everyone's this kind of rabid person about to go mad, when actually we're the decent folk that up and down the country that keep the country going, and our entrepreneurs are a key part of that. Listen, lots of people have left for places like Dubai and Portugal. We've obviously got all the issues around taxation that are also coming down the line. I mean, Rachel Reeves doesn't want to do her licensing for her HMO, right? But she wants to tell everyone else to do it. You know, IHT, what's going on with the farmers and veterans and businesses, income tax, discussions around capital gains tax, houses. You just think, all they know is how to do tax raids and impositions on us. That's not fertile soil for people to create wealth, for entrepreneurs. And it's a travesty that so many young people and so many millionaires have left Britain already. That's going to have enormous ramifications for us. And we need to get a grip here. But I think the good thing is, look, at least almost 3 million people have signed this petition. That's one thing. Many more disagree with it. But you've got new political parties that are forming. You've got a party that's now polling, like, if you add up the other parties, more than that in some instances, right? So, and they're saying they're opposed to digital ID. They're not into it. They don't want it. They want to get rid of some of these organizations, the globalist organizations that like bind us and limit us and have economic growth and development. So I think that's to be encouraged. I think the British public have never wanted national ID or digital ID cards. And I think that the wind's behind ourselves. We've got to be courageous. We've got to fight together. We've got to talk to our friends, colleagues, and neighbours. You don't have to be a big spokesperson in the world, but you can, in your local area, get involved. I mean, we've got local and regional ambassadors. We have people that do local meetups. We've got meetings across the country. On the 16th of November, we've got a very big event in London that's all around the state of the nation and no to digital ID. So I'm hoping you'll be there with us, Jasmine. But I'd like your viewers and your followers to come along to that. There's still some tickets left, but and we'll just all, like, we can make a concerted effort. We've changed policy, right? We in a range of areas, the Department of Transport, with the Bank of England, with others. And we've won fights, right? We won fights against the mandate and the vaccine passports, right? So we can win this, but we need a digital bill of rights that's going to ring fence and protect our freedoms. In the same way you have to have a warrant to come into someone's house, you need to be able to say that people have their freedoms and privacy, and they can't just do this big overreach.
Absolutely. So finally, Alan, can we just go over again what company directors need to do if they have an accountant and what they need to do if they don't have an accountant with digital
If you have an accountant, you need to speak to them and make sure they're ACS registered, and say that you are explicitly saying you do not want to have one login verification, but they will just register you with Companies House. That is, we're being told at the moment, legally, that is separate to going in yourself. If you go in yourself, either from an app or yourself, and you one login register, you are committing to the digital verification system yourself personally in your own digital ID that will be linked to the other areas of the state one login system, and that's when you end up being part of that system. So that's for directors, and we've got accountants. For those who are directors who do not have, and as it happens, not just directors, right? These are people who are, you know, in partnerships and other things, that are sole traders, but they should think about getting accountants. They need to be aware of this situation, and have a look at our toolkit, togetherdeclaration.org. But we're also going to be looking at doing some things that may be able to facilitate them too.
Great.
And everyone should write to their council and MPs. We've got templates on togetherdeclaration.org site. You can go in there to know to the digital ID campaign, to write to them, to write to the government, phone your MP, make a big fuss about it. Let them hear from us that the more people that do this, the more of an impact it makes, and we can push it back and stop it together.
That's great, Alan. And we will put a link to togetherdeclaration.org below this video. And anybody can go on, you can download for free, as you say, all your templates and the help, which is really, really helpful for citizens and certainly for company directors. Alan Miller from the Together Declaration, thank you very much for coming on. It's been really excellent to have you. So do go to togetherdeclaration.org if you'd like to find out more about how you can push back against digital ID, against what the government is trying to do. This has been the Money Magpie Invest podcast. I'm Jasmine Birtles. Again, remember to follow, like, comment. I'm always interested in your comments, and tell all your friends how fabulous it is, because you know you want to. See you next week.